Are you attacking windmills? Hi, I'm Mike Mason. This is the Immortal Combat Podcast. Immortal Combat Podcast is the podcast arm of Very Christie. Very Christie is a Catholic lay apostolate devoted to help men attain the full stature of Christ by growing strong in mind, body, and spirit. If you'd like to learn more about our work, you can check us out online at verychristie.com or stjosephsociety.org. All right, gentlemen, happy Friday to all of you. This week, we're going to pick up on our reflection where we left off last week. We've been working through the book Transformation in Christ by Dietrich von Hildebrand on the Christian attitude. And we are looking at the chapter on self-knowledge, which is chapter 3. So we're going to talk about self-knowledge. All right. What I want to start with today is kind of what may have been the bizarre opening question. Are you attacking windmills? Okay. Now, the windmills I'm referring to here is from the story Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes, chapter 8. And this is what it says. At this point, they came in sight of 30 to 40 windmills that there on the plain, as soon as Don Quixote saw them, he said to his squire, Sancho Panza, Fortune is arranging matters for us better than we could have shaped our desires ourselves. For look there, friend Sancho Panza, where 30 or more monstrous giants present themselves, all of whom I mean engage in battle and slay. And with those whose spoils we shall begin to make our fortunes. For this is righteous warfare, and it is God's good service to sweep so evil a breed from off the face of the earth. What giants? Said Sancho Panza. Those thou seest there, answered his master, with the long arms, and some have them nearly 2 leagues long. Look, your worship, said Sancho. What we see there are not giants, but windmills. And what seem to be their arms are the sails that turned by the wind to make the millstone go. It is easy to see, replied Don Quixote, that thou art not used to this business of adventures. Those are giants, and if thou art afraid, away with thee out of this, and betake thyself to prayer, while I engage them with fierce and unequal combat. All right. It's a very famous scene from Don Quixote. I imagine a lot of you guys read it in high school like I did. What in the world does this have to do with self-knowledge in the interior life? Dietrich von Hildebrand talks about windmills of the spiritual life when he says this. This is from page 43. So long as man is ignorant of his defects and of their real nature, all his endeavor, be it ever so laudable, to overcome those defects will end in failure. Not infrequently we meet persons who, while sincerely bent on reforming, direct all their attention to merely imaginary faults of theirs, thus fighting windmills and leaving their real defects untouched. All right. Are we fighting windmills, gentlemen, in the spiritual life? That's what we want to look at today. What Dietrich von Hildebrand's getting here, okay, is that a lot of times when you ask a guy what he needs to do to grow in holiness, the things he identifies are not the real giants that need to be slayed in his spiritual life, but merely windmills. So here we have Don Quixote in this story, right? He sees these windmills and he perceives them as being giants, which they're not, and he rushes off an adventure to attack them. Notice Don Quixote has a lot of zeal. He's got a lot of energy. He's ready to enter the fray. He's ready to fight, but his enemy is not a real enemy. It's just a perceived one. Okay. What is it in the spiritual life that we perceive are the giants that we're going to slay, but they're actually not? That's what we want to give some insight today. Now, as you guys will see as we go through this reflection, I'm not going to tell you specifically what your giants are, but this is just to encourage you, okay, and give you some pointers at the end of how to go about doing this. All right. In the spiritual life, there is the exterior and interior means of perfection. So exterior means of perfection are things that come outside of you, okay, that you impose upon yourself or imposed upon you to help you grow spiritually. What are some examples of that exterior means of perfection? Take our rule of life, okay? So our rule of life, the prayers we say each day, exercising 3 times a week, study, that rule's imposed from the outside. I know we agree to it, but it's imposed so that we can grow in holiness. Hey, that's great stuff. Think about your spiritual reading, right? Whatever text you're taking up to read. Think about social relationships, your family, your friends, your priests, fellow parishioners. These are all really powerful ways to make progress in the spiritual life, okay? However, If you truly want to root out your vices, you have to have self knowledge, which is part of the interior movement. Okay. So, interiorly, to root out what's on the inside, self knowledge is going to help us do that. Okay. Let's look at a couple quotes on the necessity of self knowledge. Okay. So, why do we need this? Von Hildebrand has a really great quote in there, but I'm going to go with one from Adolf Tanquery's The Spiritual Life, since that's one of the main texts we use here at the at Very Christi and the St. Joe Society. Tanqueray says this: "If we lack self-knowledge, it is morally impossible to perfect ourselves. The reason is that when we entertain illusions concerning our state, we fall either into presumptuous optimism that makes us believe we're already perfect, or into discouragement that causes us to exaggerate our faults. In either case, the result is almost identical: inaction, lack of sustained effort, and carelessness." Now, notice Tanker here. When we don't have true self knowledge, okay, what happens is we tend to fall into two errors which have the same outcome. The first area is presumptuous optimism. When guys don't spend diligent enough, are not diligent enough in assessing themselves, good and bad, which we'll get to here in a minute, they tend to think that they're more holy than they really are. They get an inflated view of themselves. And when you think you've arrived, you stop working. Okay. You see this in sports all the time. You'll see teams who just, you'll see players or teams that just think they're the top dog, they're the best. And their workouts, they start cutting corners on the amount of reps they're doing in the weight room. They don't have the focus and energy they need in the film room or on the practice field, and they really start to fall off, and then they lose. You can also fail without good self knowledge of thinking that you're worse than you actually are. So you can exaggerate your faults, okay? And this would be the error of not seeing the all the good going on in your life. And there you get so despondent that you're just like, there's no point in moving on. Okay. So an inflated view of self and a too low view of self results in the same thing. You don't put any effort into your spiritual life. Okay. So that's the idea. Now, the necessity of self knowledge is so important that Reginald Garrigou Lagrange, right, my guy, in the three ages of the interior life, which are the green books you can see over my shoulder right here, um, the first thing he addresses when he talks about the spiritual life of the beginners or the purgative way, the first paragraph is on self knowledge. That's how important it is. All right. So, necessity of self knowledge, absolutely need it. Now, what is the object of self knowledge? Okay. So, what is the thing we're trying to think about? Okay. Um, and this is taken out of Tankery as well. We need to look at the good, the bad, and the ugly. How about the good? Tankery says we should, without any sort of false humility, ascertain what are the good qualities that Almighty God has dealt to us, not indeed to glory therein, but to thank God the giver and to cultivate his gifts. Okay. Guys, self-knowledge is not just running through all your sins and the things that you tempt you and all your bad qualities and then leaving it there. No, we need to assess the good things about us. Okay. So part of the object, the thing we're going to discover through self-knowledge, is the good. However, we also need knowledge of the bad and the ugly. Tanqueray continues, we must at the same time face with courage the sight of our miseries and our faults. And it takes a lot of courage to do that. I don't want to downplay the fact that when it comes to looking at your faults, doing a good examination of conscience, making a good confession, it does take courage to do it. Not only because, divulging that stuff to our admitting it to ourselves or divulging it to a priest or things is intrinsically embarrassing, but the evil one does not want to have us do that, so he's constantly whispering in our ears that it's unnecessary. So all right, so self-knowledge, absolutely necessary. The object, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Let's give you guys a couple applications and then we'll wrap this up. Okay. First, I want the applications, and these are more just thought provoking for you. Okay, this is going to be overly specific, but just kind of get your thoughts going on this, the project of self knowledge. Let's assess our natural and supernatural gifts. Okay, how about natural gifts? Naturally speaking, right, human beings have three basic parts, okay, or three aspects to us. One, we have our appetites; those are the lowest part of ourselves. We have our will and we have our mind. Okay. So when you're doing assessing your natural gifts, you want to look at all of those. So let's start with the lowest, sensitive appetites. We have to we have to be honest with ourselves, okay? What predominates in us? Is it our feelings, our will, and our intellect? So first thing you have to ask yourself is, if I'm really honest, what drives the show of my decision making? My appetites, my will, or my intellect? Okay. And you might fall in any one of those three things. Okay. Sensitive appetites. How well do you guard your exterior senses? How good are you at putting up barriers from the junk of the world getting in and influencing your appetites? What about your interior senses? This is your imagination, right? This is your memory. How disciplined are you in controlling the things you think about and then how you think of the past? Are your passions directed and controlled? Okay, so when your desires for food, drink, and sex, are those directed and controlled? Are you pointing those the proper way, or are they out of control? How about your irascible appetite? That's the appetite to do difficult things. This is where our aggression and stuff comes from. Is that out of control, or are we directing it? Got to be honest with yourself. Second, what about the mind? What sort of mind do you possess? Yeah, how smart are you? Okay. Are you more theoretical or are you practical? How's your personal study going? In the St. Joe Society in Very Christie, we study twice a week. Now we're not real specific on what that looks like. We leave that to you guys to figure out what that looks like. But are you doing it? Are you setting time aside twice a week to grow intellectually in your faith? Okay. Are your judgments based on reason or on feelings? So when you're making choices, particularly moral ones, are these based on feelings or reason? How about your will? Is your will weak or is it constant? Is it strong and enduring? Okay, so is your weak, pardon me, is your will weak and inconstant? Right? Or is it strong and enduring? Okay, which one is it? When you set yourself on a tone, when you make a plan for the month or for the week, are you sticking it out or are you constantly regressing? Do you have strong convictions? What are you doing to train your will? Okay, are you practicing to train your will and strengthen it up? What are you doing in that area? How about your character, fellas? What kind of character do you possess? Are you a man of principle or are you swayed by your emotions and by peer pressure? Okay. Having good character is absolutely indispensable to not only the spiritual life, but just being the strong, good, and noble leader that God's calling you to be in the area where He's called you. All right. Are you swayed by emotions, public pressure? Are you a man of character? Do you possess a steadfastness in that which is true, good, and beautiful? Do you err in extremes in character traits? What I mean by that is, can you balance being just and merciful? Or are you erring on being too heavy handed with people? Okay. Are you strong and meek? Are you capable of exerting strength when necessary, but also holding your strength back in check? That's called meekness. Do you do that well? Are you firm with people, but can you also be kind? So character is going to help do that. We don't want to be erring in extremes. Okay, virtue is the median between two extremes, two vices. Well, how well are we doing that? Lastly, for the natural gifts, how are we doing with our habits? Are we forming good habits to build virtue? And are we actively uprooting vices? Okay, bad habits. All right. These are some self knowledge that you guys can get at. So, sense of appetites, you know, mind, will, character, and habits. Got to assess these sort of things. Okay. What about your supernatural gifts? This is primarily have to do with grace. How are we responding with God's grace, good and bad? Because remember, all these guys, the sensitive aptitudes, mind, will, character, habits, grace, we can respond to these in good ways and in bad ways. So with God's grace, how have we responded to his grace in the past in good ways? What is he calling you to right now that you're responding well to? On the bad, what resistance are we offering God's grace for us? What failings and sins are we holding on to that we had not handed over? Okay. So when it comes to self knowledge, guys, go through a character reflection. Okay. Go through your mind, your will, your intellect, your character, your habits, strengths and weaknesses, and make sure you do both. We don't want to fall into those extremes Tankery talked about of too much optimism, like I'm the dude. or, we're too hard on ourselves where we think we're nothing. The truth is in the middle. Okay. So strengths and weaknesses. And then when it comes to God's grace, what areas are we doing well in? And what do we need more work in? Okay. This type of self knowledge will help you guys grow in faith. Okay. Now, the way to do this, and then we'll wrap up here. Okay. It helps to have some outside input when you do these things. So, what I would encourage you, find a spiritual director. Now, that's not easy to do. Okay. But if you can find one, some priest or to a confessor who's wise and knowledgeable and holy, find one. If not that, do you have some good friends, okay, that you can trust that can help you do this? Okay. So have some input, maybe your wife, maybe your friends, maybe a group of people to do this, but some outside people to help you figure this out. Okay. Have good knowledge of yourself. Second, keep a daily examination of conscience. Remember, we have that our examination at night, act of contrition. Stick to that. Really be disciplined in holding that because that's a good way to grow in self knowledge. And then lastly, men, go to confession at least monthly, if not more. Okay. So do examinations, natural gifts and supernatural gifts. Have some friends and trusted friends and family, maybe even a spiritual director to help you do this. Examination conscience at night and go to confession. If you guys do this, you will grow in your self knowledge and in holiness for sure. If you have not picked it up yet, and you guys want to pick up this, I'm going to keep going through these chapter by chapter each week because it helps me grow in faith, and I'll pass along anything that might be helpful to you. So we will wrap up there. Hope you guys have an awesome weekend. I look forward to talking to you next time. God bless.